the chat window, so I think we'll just kind of keep going.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So really quick, kind of jumping gears here, because of an inquiry that came in on how proration is calculated and everything, let's just take a look at an example. And actually, let's start from the configuration page. So proration, just so everyone understands, is defined on the Work 365 configuration page, and you have two options. Those are either monthly proration or daily proration. So if we take a look here, you can see the sandbox that we're in is set to a daily proration. Okay, now what that looks like on the invoice itself, when you look at the proration itself, you'll see under the specified line item, it's going to say either licenses removed or licenses added. And it's going to have the specified days, meaning the day, basically the number of days that are left within the previous billing cycle that are billable. And then it's also going to have the at and then the monthly price, right? So what happens is it's going to take that specified number of days multiplied by the quantity that was added or reduced, the price per that line item, and then it's going to have a total. Now this subscription is an add-on to a real product, so that's why it's showing as non-billable, or sorry, it's a child subscription of a real product, so it's non-billable. If we looked at the parent bundle of that example, so we have 25 days left in the billing cycle to bill.
It's that item, Sky Blue Business Plan 1. It's
right.
Second
right.
last from the bottom. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. -3.
Sure. Okay, so yeah, we have 22 days left in the billing cycle at $18 monthly. You have, it's multiplying by 3 quantities. So here's the price for that prorated number for those 22 days. And then it's calculating the total times the 3. Now you can see, because this specific example was a reduction in 3 licenses, it's basically calculating the credit or the refund amount. So that's what the parentheses mean. This is a credit against the total invoice. Now, what that means is that it basically takes all of the positive, all of the subscriptions that were added, minus any subscriptions that were subtracted to give you the total that's due in the total line item. Excuse me. So that's kind of what the credit means when you have a reduction in those licenses. Whereas, if you had a subscription that's, adding a license, again, it's going to calculate the specific days that are left in the billing cycle that are billable, multiplied by the proration amount against the quantity, and you get your total. And this is a positive number, so it's just going to be added to the total.
So Sam, we do have a question.
Okay.
One question is, I have a customer with an Azure subscription, but the product in the invoice is not there. Right. So I think this goes back to what you were talking about with making sure it's on the subscription.
Right. So one thing to note, if that Azure subscription is listed as a child and part of a bundle, if it's a write-in child, it's not going to be visible on the invoice. Another thing to note, depending on when the consumption for that subscription started, if it was recent, that might be another example or explanation on why it's not showing, because there's nothing billable yet, because you haven't gotten the provider invoice yet for the system to calculate the costs.
So,
and we do have.
I have unmuted you, Maria, if you want to, share your specific situation.
Yeah, I think that would be.
Yeah, so you're able to, yep, you should have audio.
Hello?
Hello. Hi.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you fine, yeah.
Hello, everyone. Hi, we have a customer with a subscription Azure. We have 2 invoices as the product is not there. I don't know why, but the product is not present. Is
Yeah, so we'd have to look at 2, 3 things there, Maria. One is, is the product specified on the subscription? And
yes.
then, yep, okay. If the product is specified on the subscription, then we'd have to look at your Azure billing cycle to make sure your Azure consumption was reported like Samantha was mentioning. So you should be able to go to your provider invoices and make sure that Microsoft has reported your monthly consumption. Sometimes Microsoft delays that, and because of the delay, the invoice does not show the Azure consumption in the actual invoice. So we'd have to look at your specific situation. But the main things to kind of keep in mind is, did your provider invoice when does Microsoft invoice you? Do you know when you received the Microsoft invoice bill?
The 8th.
8th. Yeah, so it's about 6 days. This is usually it should be there by now, but what I would suggest is, and when was the customer's invoice due?
When what? Sorry?
When was the invoice for the customer due? You said I got the customer invoice. When did that become due?
2 days before.
Yeah, so it's possible that between the 8th and the 10th or 11th, Microsoft had not reported the full Azure consumption. So we'd have to look at that data for you. You should go to the provider invoice. There's a field. Samantha, can you share that provider
Sure.
invoice data?
Yep.
Yeah, let's just show them where
Yes,
that
please
is.
show me.
Yep.
Let's go to that really quick. So you go to the Work 365 icon, hit the drop down. Under provider management, you have providers, provider accounts, and then provider invoices, right?
Yeah, so if you open that up, you should find the Microsoft invoice here, and you should look at the created on date. Okay, the created on date. If the created on happened after your customer's data, after your customer invoice, then you know that the data was not available when the invoice was generated from Work 365. So in that case, what you have to do is regenerate that invoice. You can delete the old invoice and regenerate it.
Okay. I will do it.
Yeah, so you want to just check, make sure the provider invoice is there. The created on date is, usually should be before your invoices for Azure need to be generated.
Okay.
So we do have another training recording that we can send to you detailing like all of this with a specific timeline and examples and all of that stuff. So I think that will be helpful just from a visual standpoint. So you can see what we're talking about. But yeah, just following Ismail's example there, deleting the invoice and making sure your create on date is what it should be.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. So
Thank you.
just keep in mind that we're basically pulling in data from the Partner Center. Sometimes Partner Center is delayed, and if the delay causes an impact from the usage, from reporting of usage, then your Azure invoice will not be there, unfortunately. So you have to keep some gap between your Microsoft invoice and your customer invoice for Azure, especially for Azure. Yep, and that's why we sometimes recommend to have a separate billing contract just for Azure, which is at least 1 week after your Microsoft invoice date.
Okay, thank you.
You're most welcome. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for joining. We love questions. Now, if everyone else or anyone else has questions, feel free to, chime in.
Yeah, I think we'll wrap up here. I just want to mention one thing. We did miss our biweekly training last week. So if anyone in the group that's here today could tell us The next one would obviously be scheduled next week if that works. If that works, we'll do that. But if that's too quick, then we'll push it out by a couple of weeks. Apologize, we couldn't make it last week. We had some technical issues. That's one thing. And the second thing I want to mention about the proration is that, proration certainly takes into account days, but keep in mind that, it's also smart enough to know how many days are there in that specific month, right? So it's going to know if it's a 28-day month, 29-day month, or a 31-day month. Just keep that in mind.
Okay, and then wrapping up here, just so everyone knows, we do have a webinar on Thursday. We'll be kind of detailing the best practices on subscription management, billing automation, things like that. But we'll also kind of give some highlights into, the features of the new release. So, current Work 365 users will definitely be interested in that. So yeah, hope to see you there.
Yeah, that's great. Actually, what I think we might do then is we might just push out the next week's training until the release is actually available, so we can talk about all the upgrade items, and specifically talk about how to upgrade to the 2.5 release in the following week. So if you could just post on Yammer whether you'd like to have the session next week or the following week, that'd be great. Thanks for your time. Yeah, that's all. Thanks, Samantha.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining today. Thank you, Ismail, for all the insight that you provide. And then we'll go ahead and close this. Again, this was a recorded session, so this will be available soon on our channel. All right. Have a great day.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.